My name is Natalie Morgan, 27 years old. They say 27 is the most beautiful age for a woman. Freedom, a career beginning to stabilize, and family as your safe harbor. But me? At this age, I just came to realize one bitter truth. Family can also be the loneliest place on earth. That day was Christmas morning. When I opened my eyes, everything was silent. No laughter, no clinking dishes, no blaring "All I Want for Christmas Is You" by Mariah Carey that my mom never failed to blast from 6 a.m. every year. I frowned and sat up straight. The alarm clock on my phone showed 9:15 a.m. My heart sank to my stomach. How could I have overslept? I set my alarm for 5:30 a.m. I threw off my blanket, rushed out of the room, mumbling, "They're probably loading the car. I need to hurry." But as I stepped into the hallway, an eerie silence filled the space. The two-story house that was always bustling on Christmas morning now felt empty, abandoned. My parents' room? Empty. Their suitcases were gone. My sister Amanda's room? Empty. My little brother Kyle's room? Normally messy. But his travel backpack and gaming console were also gone. I ran downstairs. The living room, kitchen, dining area, all empty. Only the Christmas tree still lit quietly, and on the dining table, the breakfast dishes sat unwashed, as if they had just finished eating and left immediately. No. No way. I rushed outside to the porch. My Honda was still there, but the other four cars, my parents' car, Amanda's car, and the family's rented SUV for transporting gifts and luggage, had all disappeared. They were gone. My throat tightened. My hands trembled as I grabbed my phone. No missed calls, no messages, no note left behind. I was shaking as I dialed my mom. After a few rings, her cheerful voice came through. "Natalie, just waking up? Merry Christmas, honey." I clenched the phone, my lips quivering. "Mom, where is everyone? I'm at home. I woke up and the house is empty." A pause. Then my mom's voice suddenly rushed. Natalie? What? I thought you were riding with Rachel. We thought you were already in Rachel's car." I froze, swallowed hard, feeling like the entire house collapsed on top of me. "Mom, no one asked me to ride with anyone. I'm at home. Alone." I heard rustling on the other end. My dad's voice chimed in. "Just tell her we'll talk later. There's no signal here." My mom sighed, trying to sound casual. "Okay, sweetie. Must have been a mix-up. I'll call you back later, all right?" And then, beep, 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 the line went dead. They left me. On Christmas Day, no note, not even a second glance. I stood frozen in the empty kitchen, my hand still gripping the phone, but my heart felt like it had plunged into a bottomless pit. And that was the moment I knew this year I wasn't forgotten. I was excluded from my own family. I tried to stay calm, telling myself, "Don't panic, Natalie. Maybe it really was just a mistake." But my gut whispered something else. "You know your family." I grabbed my phone, frantically calling my sister, Amanda. The phone rang several times, then went to voicemail. No answer. I tried Kyle, my brother. Result? Phone off. My heart grew colder by the minute. I dashed into my room, opened my laptop. Instinct told me to check messages, emails, schedules. I flipped through everything related to the trip. The trip that I had planned, booked, arranged every detail for, like I had every year. I opened the family group chat, the one where all trip-related announcements had always been posted. But strangely, the group chat had gone silent 3 days ago. No good morning messages, no reminders to pack, no last-minute check-ins. For a family that micromanaged every detail like mine, that wasn't normal. I scrolled through my phone again, heart sinking like lead. And then I found it. Another group chat I'd never seen before. Christmas Trip 2023. I froze. I had never seen this group before. With trembling hands, I scrolled through the messages. All pictures of cars being packed, who's riding with who, the schedule for each leg of the trip. My name? Not there. I clicked into the group member list. It popped up. Every single member of my family, even distant cousins, uncles, aunts, in-laws, everyone. Except me. It felt like someone had slapped me, hard. I sat frozen in the chair, heart racing out of control. My mind replayed old conversations, the sneering glances, the sarcastic remarks I had brushed aside. Natalie always overreacts. It always has to be her way. Another Christmas alone, probably sulking because she doesn't have a boyfriend. I used to think I was imagining things. I thought that if I just tried a little harder, they'd see me, accept me. But clearly, they had organized everything quietly, leaving me out. Like I was nothing more than an afterthought. My head buzzed. They did this on purpose. I grabbed my phone again, opened Instagram. Amanda's profile. Live streaming. The video on my screen made my stomach churn. The whole family crammed into cars, laughing, chatting over familiar Christmas tunes. The comments rolled in. Wow, full house! 17 people, amazing! Looks like the perfect family holiday. And me? Here, alone. In an empty house, the cars long gone. My phone buzzed. A message from Amanda. Oops, must have been a mix-up. I thought you were riding with Rachel. Don't be mad, Natalie. Don't be mad? My whole body stiffened, my heart aching with every beat. And that's when I knew. This wasn't a mix-up. This was a plan. I didn't reply to Amanda's message, because deep down, I knew she was acting, like she always did. My entire family, their greatest skill was putting on a show. I stood up and opened my laptop. A crystal clear thought echoed in my head. Do they really think I'm that stupid? Did they forget I'm the one who booked this entire trip? My name is on every document, every receipt, every confirmation. I logged into the email account I used to reserve the resort in Colorado, opened my inbox. Every invoice, every itinerary I had saved meticulously. I clicked on the Sent folder. There were all the confirmation emails sent to each family member. But then, my eyes narrowed. One name was missing, mine. They had removed my email address from the confirmation list. I scrolled further, feeling a weight sinking into my chest. And then, stranger still, I found another chat backup file on my phone, from iCloud, automatically synced to this device. It was a habit from work, being cautious. And now, it turned out to be my lifeline. I opened Amanda's backup messages. Pages and pages of chats popped up. I skimmed through them quickly. And then, my heart clenched as if gripped by an icy hand. A chat between Amanda, Kyle, and my mom, Amanda. Natalie definitely has no clue. Mom, let me handle it. Kyle. True, it's way more chill without her around. Mom. But Natalie's the one who booked the rooms. Amanda. Exactly why it's easier. Let her do all the work. When the trip gets close, I'll ask her for the booking info to double-check. Easy. Then on the day we leave, we just pretend there was a mix-up. Problem solved. Mom. Isn't that a little harsh? Amanda. What's harsh is letting her ruin Christmas again, Mom. My fists clenched so tight, my knuckles turned white. My whole body went cold. For years, they had played me like a fool. I used to think that if I just tried harder, if I stayed quiet, if I cared enough, they'd finally acknowledge me. Turns out, I was nothing more than a pawn for them to use. I clicked open another chat, between Amanda and Rachel, my cousin. Rachel, what if she finds out? Amanda, even if she does, what's she gonna do? She's weak, always has been. Rachel, yeah, good point. I let out a bitter laugh. Weak? They were right. I used to be weak. But today, the game had changed. I looked at my phone screen. More fake apologies were pouring in. But now, I was no longer Natalie, the doormat who endured everything. I was Natalie, the one who had the truth in her hands, and I was ready to strike back. I sat frozen in front of my computer screen, the cruel messages from my family replaying in my mind like a broken recording. But the more I read, the clearer my mind became. For the first time in my life, I didn't feel hurt. I felt like they had just taught me the most valuable lesson of all. If I had been a pawn on this family chessboard my whole life, today, I was going to flip the entire board. I opened the resort booking account. My name, Natalie Morgan, was crystal clear on every document. The deposit, the payment details, all charged to my credit card. Did they really think I was that easy to manipulate? I called the resort front desk directly. "Hi, this is Natalie Morgan. I need to confirm the reservation details for tomorrow." "Of course, Ms. Morgan. I see the booking here. 6 cabins, total of 17 guests. But, oh, I'm sorry. We did receive an update from a Ms. Amanda Morgan 2 days ago, stating that you wouldn't be attending the trip and requested your name be removed from the guest list." I let out a cold laugh, my heart pounding with restrained anger. "I'm the primary on this reservation. I'm the one who paid for it. Any updates or changes must be confirmed by me. I demand full control over this booking." "Absolutely, Ms. Morgan. Apologies for the confusion. Would you like to make any changes?" I paused for a second, then calmly replied, "I'd like to cancel the entire reservation, and if anyone calls to confirm or inquire, simply tell them the booking was canceled per direct request of the cardholder. Nothing more." The receptionist hesitated. "But, Ms. Morgan, per our holiday policy, bookings during peak season are non-refundable," I sneered. "I know, but if your resort doesn't want to be dragged into a legal mess for processing unauthorized requests from someone not on the payment agreement, I trust we can be flexible." A beat of silence. "I'll speak to management. Please hold." A few minutes later, the manager took over the call. After I explained everything, it didn't take long for him to agree. 80% refund, full cancellation, effective immediately. I hung up the phone, a smirk creeping across my lips. Step 1. Complete. Now on to the next. I pulled up a file I'd been keeping, a record of every expense I had quietly covered for the family over the years. Tuition for Kyle, car repairs for Amanda, emergency loans for my mom when Dad lost his job. Total, over $36,000. I gathered every receipt, documented every transaction. I was going to send them an invoice. Not because I needed the money, but because I needed them to finally see who had been carrying this family all along. My phone buzzed again. Amanda calling. I didn't answer. I had more important things to prepare for. If they thought leaving me behind was their victory, they were about to learn exactly what it feels like when the chessboard flips. The next morning, I got up early, brewed myself a hot cup of coffee, and enjoyed a rare, satisfying moment of peace. My phone was still buzzing nonstop. Messages, missed calls, emails from the family. But I didn't bother looking, because I knew, in just a few hours, the flawless little show they had orchestrated would come crashing down. At exactly 10 a.m., the resort called me back. "Ms. Morgan, just following up as you requested." The receptionist's voice sounded professional, with a hint of barely concealed amusement. "Your family has just arrived, and as you predicted, they were quite shocked to learn the reservation was canceled." I took a slow sip of my coffee, keeping my tone calm. "What did they say?" "At first it was chaos. An older woman, I assume your mother, tried to explain there was some mix-up. A younger woman, possibly Amanda, looked flustered, but it was clear she knew exactly what was going on. And a few men with them. They seemed more angry than confused." I didn't respond. I simply smiled faintly. "We informed them exactly as you instructed. The reservation was canceled by the cardholder, which is you. And due to peak holiday demand, all our cabins are fully booked. There are no vacancies." I leaned back on the sofa, satisfaction spreading through my chest. "Perfect. Thank you, Melanie. Let them figure it out on their own." "Of course, Ms. Morgan. If they need assistance, I'll direct them to other nearby hotels. But I suspect, given the season, they'll struggle." "That's their problem now." I ended the call. 17 people. 4 cars. A vacation they thought would be their escape from Natalie. And now, they were standing in the Colorado winter. No rooms, no plan, no one to guide them, forced to face not only the situation, but also their own selfishness. I picked up my phone. Amanda's message popped up instantly. Amanda. Natalie, what the hell is happening? The resort said you canceled the booking? There are no rooms left anywhere. Everything's full. I didn't reply, but I knew. This was only the beginning. They thought I'd cry, beg to be included? No. I had spent my entire life bending over backwards to please them. Now they would learn what life looked like. Without me. And without my money. Meanwhile, I had already booked myself a flight to Bali. As for them, they were about to have the dream vacation they deserved, a full-blown nightmare. After hitting send on my silent reply to Amanda, I stood up and grabbed the suitcase I had packed the night before. Light summer dresses, sunglasses, books, and my passport. The official ticket to a brand new life. My flight to Bali was scheduled for 11 p.m. A spontaneous decision? Maybe. But in reality, I had been planning this for years, just never had the courage to follow through. The house was still silent. Outside, the Christmas lights blinked faintly in the cold wind. Another year had passed, filled with fake family dinners, empty holiday greetings, and those pitying looks they gave me, as if I were the burden holding back their happiness. I rolled my suitcase to the door, glancing one last time at the place I used to call home, but what I was leaving behind wasn't just walls and old furniture. It was a past full of hurt. A place where they were willing to cut me out of a family trip, but not willing to cut me out of paying for it. My phone buzzed endlessly. Mom, Dad, Kyle. Their messages flooded my screen. Mom. Natalie, please call me. It's not what you think. Dad. What kind of sick joke is this? Canceling the trip last minute? Do you have any idea how much money went into that? I smirked. Their money? More like my money. Kyle. Okay, you've taken this way too far. The whole family is freaking out. Explain yourself. I set the phone down, not even bothering to unlock it. No explanation mattered when they'd never cared enough to listen to me in the first place. At the airport, I walked through security, a weight lifting off my chest. My boarding group was called. I sat in the airplane cabin, staring out the window as the city lights shrank beneath me. Ahead of me was Bali. Blue oceans, golden sunshine, and for the first time, a life where I chose my own happiness. No one else's permission required. Bali wasn't just a destination. It was the first time I chose myself. And my family? They would stay behind, left to deal with their so-called perfect vacation. No Natalie, no rooms, no plans, and no one left to blame, and they would have to learn to live with that. I landed at Denpasar Airport in Bali just as night was falling. The warm, salty air filled my lungs, making me feel like a different person entirely. My phone buzzed non-stop inside my suitcase, but I didn't care to check. My family? They were knee-deep in their own chaos. Once I checked into a small, charming beach resort, I pulled out my phone, not to answer their frantic messages, but to open my home security camera app. A cruel joke? Maybe. But after everything they had done, I felt no guilt. The front yard camera caught the moment they all returned from Colorado. It was an image I'd never forget. Dad standing at the front door, face flushed red with anger, fumbling with the familiar set of keys, only to turn around and slam his hand against the door when he realized the locks had been changed. My mom stood beside him, pale-faced, her eyes darting around like she was hoping for some miracle to open that door. Amanda was glued to her phone, furiously texting, likely messaging me, calling a locksmith, or trying to find someone to help, but no one was picking up. Kyle sat slumped on the front steps, his head buried in his hands, looking as if his whole world had collapsed. The little baby of the family, locked out of Mommy's warm, perfect house. I zoomed in on the footage, clearly spotting the letter I had left on the mailbox, neatly tucked with a brand new set of keys. They'd read it soon enough. I switched over to my message app, scrolling past hundreds of frantic, chaotic texts. Dad, do you have any idea what you're doing? This is a family home, not some childish game. Mom, Natalie, please, sweetheart, we're home. Open the door so we can talk, okay? Amanda, you're being ridiculous. You only care about yourself. We already apologized. What more do you want? Kyle, Natalie, you can hate us, fine, but this is everyone's home. Don't blow things out of proportion. I turned off the screen. On the other side of the world, they were finally getting a taste of what it felt like. To be ignored, excluded, treated like a burden. The exact feelings I had carried for 27 years. On the Bali beach, under the soft glow of the sunset, I sipped my cocktail and whispered to myself, "Welcome to my reality, but this time, I'm the one directing the show." The backyard of the Matthews estate had been transformed into the perfect party scene. Under the soft golden lights, long tables draped in crisp white linen stretched across the garden, wine glasses sparkled under the dim glow. Soft jazz floated through the air, conversations buzzed, and fake laughter filled the space like a well-rehearsed play. I walked in slowly, my deep blue dress standing out among the crowd, my eyes meeting familiar faces, all wearing the same mask, polite, calculating, and entirely artificial. My father stood in the center like a king among his court, surrounded by admirers, business partners, and of course James, the golden child, the heir he never stopped bragging about. I wasn't even surprised when I spotted the sleek black Mercedes S-Class parked beside the garden, the one I had gifted him. It sat gleaming under the lights, a symbol of success, a trophy on display. Yet the painful truth was, he never acknowledged that I was the one who bought it. Suppressing a sigh, I walked over to the buffet table, grabbed a glass of wine, my eyes never leaving my father. And then, his voice echoed across the garden from the temporary stage. "Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for attending this year's Matthews family gathering. I'd like to take a moment to honor those who have made this family proud." I froze, my heart pounding. A tiny part of me, though I knew better, still hoped this time might be different. "First, James." He beamed at my brother. The applause erupted. "He's just closed the region's largest real estate deal, expanding the Matthews legacy even further." Cheers, clinking glasses, all eyes on James. "And of course, Sophia." His voice softened slightly. "Her meaningful community work. She is the model of a Matthews woman, balancing family and society beautifully." Another round of applause, my mother smiling proudly, while I stood there, like a shadow behind the scenes. "As for—" He paused, making the whole crowd hold their breath. "The rest of you, I hope you use this as motivation. Matthews doesn't tolerate mediocrity." A sharp, calculated jab. He didn't need to say my name. Everyone knew exactly who he was aiming at. I clenched my wine glass, every muscle in my face frozen. A few sympathetic glances drifted toward me, others curious, and some, those smug, triumphant smirks from relatives who had looked down on me since childhood. But instead of breaking like before, this time, I simply smiled. A bitter, cutting smile. In my purse, the envelope containing the DNA results remained hidden, like a ticking time bomb, waiting for its moment. I took a small sip of wine, my eyes fixed on my father, reminding myself silently, "Enjoy the spotlight while you can, Richard Matthews, because tonight, this show is far from over." The party continued, wine glasses clinking, handshakes exchanged, shallow compliments echoing across the glowing garden. But to me, it was all just meaningless noise. I slipped away toward the far end of the backyard, where the light dimmed, and the perfectly trimmed rose bushes shielded me from view. And then, a familiar voice called softly behind me, "Eliza." I turned. It was Sophia, my sister, the only one in this family who still held a shred of warmth for me. "I've been looking for you," she whispered, her eyes clouded with concern. "Are you okay?" I let out a bitter chuckle, my gaze steady on her. "Okay? After being humiliated by Dad in front of 100 people? You think I should be okay?" Sophia bit her lip, hesitating for a moment, then nervously reached out, pulling me into the darker corner of the garden, out of everyone's sight. "Eliza, I have to tell you something." Sophia lowered her head, her voice trembling. "It's not that Dad doesn't love you, it's just, he knows." I froze, my heart stopping mid-beat. "Knows what?" Sophia looked at me, her eyes glassy with tears. That, you're not his biological daughter. It felt like the blood drained from my entire body. My mind spiraled, my breath caught in my throat. What? What did you say? I whispered, my voice cracking. Sophia quickly explained. I don't know everything, but I overheard when I was little. Mom and Dad were fighting. He's known for years. But because of his pride, because of family reputation, he chose to stay silent. But haven't you noticed? He's never truly treated you like his child. I stood there in stunned silence. Memories flooded back like a tidal wave. The cold stares, the dismissive words, the unfair comparisons, all the efforts I made, only to be belittled again and again. So, that was the reason? I bit my lip, grief and rage welling up inside me, but my mind stayed sharp. I have proof, I whispered, my hand tightening around my purse containing the DNA envelope. And I'm done staying silent. Sophia's eyes widened in shock. You're going to? I nodded firmly, locking eyes with her. It's time to end this charade once and for all. In the distance, my father's voice still drifted through the crowd as he laughed and schmoozed with his business partners. He had no idea that tonight, everything he built was about to crumble. I stood there, beneath the soft yellow lights, my hand gripping the small purse tightly. A storm of emotions swirled inside me, but on the outside, my face remained calm, just like I had learned to maintain all these years. Only this time, I was ready for the final battle. Go back inside, Sophia. Don't draw attention, I whispered, my eyes quietly scanning the crowd beyond the rose bushes. Sophia hesitated for a moment, then nodded reluctantly, disappearing back into the bustling party. As for me, I straightened my dress, adjusted my expression, and took slow, steady steps toward the grand hall, where the party was reaching its peak. Inside, laughter rang out, glasses clinked, the crystal chandeliers sparkled like floating gems above our heads. My father stood in the center of the room, surrounded by financial partners, relatives, and all the people who had spent years worshiping him. I walked closer, intentionally letting the sharp sound of my heels echo across the wooden floor, drawing every eye toward me. Ah, Eliza, perfect timing, my father smirked, his tone casual but laced with that familiar disdain. We were just talking about you. Really? I tilted my head, a faint smirk forming on my lips. Well, that's convenient. I have something to share with everyone, too. I pulled the envelope from my purse, holding it up for the curious crowd to see. A special Father's Day gift I've prepared, for you. I looked him dead in the eyes, my voice cutting like ice. I mean, right alongside that Mercedes outside. The room instantly fell silent. Laughter ceased. Whispers rippled through the crowd. My father's expression darkened as he stepped closer. Eliza, don't embarrass yourself in front of everyone, he hissed, his voice low with warning. I didn't flinch. I calmly opened the envelope, pulling out the DNA test results and raising them for all to see. This, I announced, my voice steady, is the DNA test between myself and Richard Matthews. The entire room froze. The once charming faces of the partygoers now stiffened with shock, all eyes darting between me and my father. I continued, my tone disturbingly calm. The results clearly state, I am not his biological daughter. A collective gasp echoed across the room. Murmurs, whispers, and shocked glances swept over the crowd like a crashing wave. Some looked at my father with suspicion. Others stared at me, a mix of pity and disbelief. My father stood frozen for a second before quickly regaining his cold, arrogant mask. But in his eyes, I saw it. Raw panic, impossible to hide. You're spewing nonsense, he snapped, stepping closer, his voice laced with barely contained fury. I held the paper up to his face, unwavering. This isn't nonsense, it's the truth. And tonight, everyone deserves to know. Silence gripped the entire hall. broken only by the faint crinkle of the paper, the pounding of my heart, and the growing whispers rippling through the crowd. Tonight, the Matthews family facade shattered, and this was only the first strike. For a few short seconds, the grand hall of the Matthews estate fell into a deafening silence. Only the faint background music lingered, eerily out of place, like a funeral song for the web of lies that had just been exposed. The DNA test results lay crumpled in my father's hand. His face had gone pale, lips pressed into a tight, colorless line. But his eyes, those cold, arrogant eyes, for the first time, they flickered with raw, unmistakable fear. "Enough, Eliza," he hissed quietly, each word forced through clenched teeth like a threat. "You have no idea what you're doing." I laughed, a dry, hollow sound that cut through the tense air like broken glass. "No idea? I've never been clearer, Father. Or maybe I should just call you Mr. Matthews." The crowd stirred. Whispers grew louder. Some guests subtly raised their phones, snapping photos, recording videos. In this day and age, there was no hiding anymore. I scanned the room. James, my brother, stood stiff as a board, jaw clenched, his glare colder than ever. Sophia lingered near the back, eyes red, filled with worry. And my mother, she had collapsed onto a chair, her face ghostly white, lips trembling. I knew. It was time to rip away the final veil of lies. For years, I addressed the crowd, making sure my voice carried. I've been painted as the rebellious child, the disappointment, the one constantly fighting against the prestigious Matthews family values. But the truth? I was never truly part of this family to begin with. I pulled out my phone, opening a folder of neatly organized documents. It wasn't just the DNA test, but emails, messages, and files I had secretly gathered during months of quiet investigation. Evidence proving my father had known the truth all along. I dug into it. My father, correction, this man, has known I'm not biologically his since the day I was born. I held the phone up for the crowd to see, scrolling through message after message. If she finds out, everything falls apart. Keep quiet. As long as Eliza keeps trying to prove herself, we control her. She's not Matthew's blood. She's dead weight. I lifted my gaze, locking eyes with my father, for the first time feeling a rush of triumph rise within me. You thought I'd stay quiet forever? The room stood frozen. Some guests slipped toward the exits, whispering among themselves. Others stayed rooted, wide-eyed, hanging onto every word. James stepped forward, face flushed with rage, his fists clenched. "You're destroying this family, Eliza." I smirked coldly, firing back. "Family? You still call this a family? A place where, the moment my blood didn't match yours, everything about me was erased, denied, trampled on?" Sophia stepped toward me, her eyes glassy, voice pleading. "Are you sure you want to escalate this now? Please, don't do this." A flicker of softness tugged at my chest. But then, I remembered the years of being dismissed, the cruel words, the icy stares. My grip tightened around my phone as I nodded firmly. "No, Sophia, I've stayed silent long enough." And at that exact moment, a new player emerged. My father's longtime lawyer, William Parks. His face was grim, his hands gripping a thick legal folder. "Eliza," he spoke, his deep voice cutting through the tension. "I think it's time we discussed Mr. Matthews' will." All eyes turned to me again. And I knew this was just the beginning of the next devastating twist, one that could shake this entire family to its core. William Parks placed the thick legal folder down on the glass coffee table. The sound of the papers landing echoed across the room, sharp and final, like a judge's gavel striking in court. The room, already tense, seemed to grow heavier with the weight of power, money, and betrayal. "The will?" James arched an eyebrow, his voice laced with suspicion. "What does that have to do with Eliza?" I smiled faintly, folding my arms across my chest, my gaze fixed on my father. "Oh, it has everything to do with me, more than ever." Mr. Parks sighed, pulling out a notarized copy of the document, his voice flat and professional, like reading a death sentence. The current will of Mr. Richard Matthews, legally executed 3 years ago, distributes the entirety of the Matthews family estate, including real estate holdings, investment portfolios, and all assets registered under Mr. Matthews' name, equally among 3 legal children, James Matthews, Sophia Matthews, and— He paused, his eyes flickering to me briefly, then shifting toward my father, as if silently asking for confirmation one last time. I didn't wait. My voice cut through the room. "Aye!" "And Eliza Matthews." The crowd practically shook. James stepped forward, his face contorting in disbelief. "No way! She's not even his biological daughter. You all heard it." I stood still, unshaken, my eyes locked onto my father, now visibly rattled, the arrogance in his expression cracking under the pressure. "James," I said coolly, "it seems you've forgotten. Legally, my birth certificate still says Eliza Matthews, lawful daughter of Richard Matthews. DNA. That means nothing in court without the paperwork to back it." I turned toward Mr. Parks. "Isn't that correct, counselor?" He nodded stiffly, his face unreadable. "Correct. Unless there's a formal legal challenge and a court ruling to the contrary, Ms. Eliza Matthews remains a legal heir to the estate." The room felt like a stretched rubber band about to snap. Some guests whispered among themselves. Others avoided my gaze entirely, as if terrified the scandal might somehow rub off on them. I took a step closer, my voice lowering, but every word slicing through the family's pride like a knife. 3 years ago, when you drafted that will, you already knew I wasn't your biological daughter. Yet, you kept my name in there. Why? Because you needed me to play the role of the stubborn daughter who could make money to save face? Or because you knew, if you pushed me out completely, your precious secret would blow up? My father's eyes dropped. His shoulders twitched slightly, his jaw clenched. But the smug mask he wore so well cracked. Sophia gently placed a hand on mine, her voice barely audible. "Eliza, you're pushing this to the edge." I looked at her, a sliver of affection flickering in my chest. But the truth was, no one could avoid reality forever. "From now on," I declared firmly, "this family's limits will be set by me." Suddenly, the sharp ring of a phone cut through the silence. Mr. Parks answered, his brows furrowing as he listened to the caller on the other end. "Mr. Matthews," he said, turning toward my father, his voice heavy with tension, "the press knows about the DNA results. They're outside, swarming the gates." Just then, through the tall windows, the sound of car horns, shouting, and megaphones carried into the room. I exhaled slowly, adjusting my dress, walking toward the window. Beyond the glass, dozens of reporters, cameras, and flashing lights aimed directly at the mansion, at the crumbling empire my father had spent decades constructing. I turned back to the room, my voice calm, my gaze sharp as a blade. Welcome to the new era of the Matthews family, where every fake smile comes off. The doorbell rang over and over, loud, relentless, pounding like a hammer against the last fragile wall of the Matthews family's pride. Through the window, camera flashes exploded like fireworks, microphones pointed directly at the grand mansion, and sharp questions echoed from outside. "Mr. Matthews, did you know Eliza wasn't your biological daughter when you wrote the will?" "Eliza, what are your intentions for the inheritance you're set to receive? Is this a calculated scheme to take down the Matthews family name?" I stood by the window, calm as if I had rehearsed this moment 1,000 times. Meanwhile, James and my father scurried like 2 men caught completely exposed in front of the world. Sophia squeezed my arm, her eyes filled with worry, her voice low. "Eliza, the media knows. This is going to blow up." I smiled faintly. "You think I didn't plan for this?" My father stormed into the living room, barking orders. "Nobody opens the door! Shut the curtains! Don't say a word to the press!" But it was already too late. The front door burst open, and a tidal wave of reporters flooded inside. Journalists, cameramen, staff from major news outlets. The mansion's security tried to hold them back, but were quickly brushed aside like irrelevant pawns. In seconds, the luxurious mansion transformed into a chaotic battlefield. I stood in the middle of the living room, camera flashes surrounding me like stage lights. A female reporter pushed forward, microphone in hand. "Ms. Eliza, as the disowned daughter, do you have anything you'd like to say to your family?" I looked straight into the camera lens, steady, unwavering. "I'm not the disowned one. I'm living proof of over 3 decades of lies in this house, and today I'm not here asking for love. I'm here demanding the truth." A wave of murmurs rippled through the room. Reporters shifted their focus to my father, James, and Sophia. My father clenched his jaw, his face flushed red with rage. "Eliza, you're destroying everything!" I turned to him, shrugging. "No, your silence destroyed everything long ago." At that moment, my phone buzzed. A message from my lawyer. "Be ready. The press will soon receive the files I sent. Richard Matthews' shady investments, tax evasion records. The DNA scandal is just the tip of the iceberg." I exhaled softly. Another twist, exactly as I intended. The already suffocating room now practically combusted. Reporters fired off questions. "Mr. Matthews, is it true your company is linked to money laundering? What happens to the Matthews family legacy when all of this reaches court? Are you stepping down from your board positions?" My father stumbled back, practically pinned to the wall by the media assault. James wiped sweat from his forehead, eyes darting frantically for an exit. Sophia stood quietly, her expression a storm of questions she didn't dare voice. I stepped onto the grand staircase, standing above them all, my voice clear and sharp. "Today, you're witnessing the fall of a so-called powerful family. But remember, it's not because I exposed them. It's because they built everything on lies." Outside, police sirens blared in the distance. Someone shouted, "The cops are here! Search warrants!" I closed my eyes, inhaling deeply. Everything was finally in motion. The wailing of police sirens echoed across the Matthews estate, like a funeral march for the pride and false glamour that my family had clung to for decades. The front door swung open, heavy boots echoed across the marble floor. Officers in uniform, bulletproof vests, and steely expressions filed in, their presence radiating authority. In their hands were search warrants, signed by a federal judge. I stood to the side, arms crossed, my gaze cool, detached, watching everything unfold. A tall officer approached my father. "Mr. Richard Matthews, we have a warrant to search this property and all affiliated offices under suspicion of money laundering, tax evasion, and financial fraud." James rushed forward, his voice rising with panic. "This is a mistake. My family, we haven't done anything illegal." The officer casually flipped open the warrant. "We'll let the investigation determine that." I stepped forward, close enough for James to hear, loud enough for the entire room to bear witness. "Remember what you told me yesterday, James? That I was the family disgrace? Let's see who really brings shame to this name after tonight." James' face drained of color, his eyes darting around like a trapped animal. My father's jaw clenched so tightly, veins bulged at his temples. The police dispersed throughout the mansion, room by room. Hidden safes were pried open, stacks of financial documents were sealed into evidence bags. They confiscated hard drives, accounting records, and those shady contracts my father had hidden for years. The media outside didn't yet know the full extent of this disaster, but in a few hours, it would all be front-page news. Sophia stood beside me, her voice barely a whisper, her tone trembling. You planned all of this in advance?" I didn't flinch, my eyes fixed on the chaos unraveling before me. "I've been planning this for 30 years, ever since the day he made me feel like an outsider." Just then, another officer approached, holding a thick folder. "Ms. Eliza Matthews, the evidence you provided was thorough. We'll need your cooperation moving forward with the investigation." I nodded. "I'll give you everything I have, as long as the truth finally comes to light." James' voice cut through the room like a viper's hiss. "How long have you been spying on this family? Are you a whistleblower? Or just a traitor?" I stepped closer, my words sharp, ice cold. Neither. I'm simply the only one in this family who still feels disgust when I see how rotten we've become, and I refuse to keep turning a blind eye. The whispers in the crowd grew louder. The polished, perfect image of the Matthews family shattered piece by piece. Those admiring glances we once commanded, now replaced by disgust, pity, and morbid curiosity. I inhaled deeply, raising my head toward the grand window, sunlight finally spilling into the house. Today, the truth had finally spoken, and this was only the beginning. I thought that after the police left, the truth exposed, this family would finally go quiet. But I should have known better. Like a wounded animal, the more cornered they were, the more vicious they'd become. That night, I returned to my private apartment in downtown Boston. I had bought this place with my own hard-earned money, no connection to the Matthews family. I thought here, at least here, I'd be safe. But the moment I stepped inside, my phone rang. Unknown number. I hesitated, then picked up. On the other end, a deep, cold male voice, sharp as steel. Eliza Matthews, you really think this is over? You think tearing down your family means you're safe? My grip on the phone tightened. Who is this? The man chuckled darkly. Let's just say, I've handled sensitive matters for your father for years, and now, I've been asked to remind you, keep digging and accidents can happen. I wasn't new to threats like these. In the world of finance, I'd heard them countless times, but hearing it aimed directly at me still sent a chill down my spine. But I stayed calm. Tell my father, or whoever's pulling your strings, I'm not the scared little girl I used to be. The man laughed coldly. You think the police protect you? Don't be naive, Eliza. Your family has connections you can't even fathom. You're playing with fire. I hung up, my hand trembling slightly, but I knew this was just a test. They wanted me panicked, scared, ready to give up. Not a chance. I walked to my personal safe, pulling out a thick folder, backup files, recordings, additional evidence I hadn't handed over yet. All of it was duplicated, stored in secure cloud accounts, and entrusted to a lawyer with one simple instruction. If I disappeared, everything would go public. That night, I didn't sleep. I sat on the couch, staring out the window at the city lights, silently reminding myself, Eliza, you chose this fight. There's no turning back now. Just before dawn, another message came in, from a blocked number. You want to play? Then we'll play for real. Attached was a photo, a zoomed-in shot, of me standing on my apartment balcony, taken just last night. A cold chill ran down my spine, my hands clenching the phone. But I also knew, when they started threatening me this blatantly, it meant one thing. They were scared, and the fear of the powerful was the greatest opportunity for the outcast like me. I always knew this wouldn't end simply. That's how the Matthews family operated. When their power was threatened, they'd do whatever it took to protect that polished, empty facade, no matter who they crushed along the way. But I wasn't that weak, controllable little girl anymore. The next morning, I drove straight to my attorney's office, Andrew Mason, a former prosecutor, sharp as a blade, someone who had seen every rotten corner of the justice system and knew how to exploit them. The moment I stepped inside, he greeted me with a steely gaze. You know, last night I received copies of your backup files and a very interesting phone call from Richard Matthews. I smirked faintly. Negotiation? Or threats? Andrew chuckled dryly. Both. But I turned him down, and I had a better idea. Why not go all in? We sat down, laying out the battle plan. This wasn't just a legal war, it was total warfare. Media, public opinion, strategic alliances, everything was fair game. I didn't sugarcoat it. I want to rip that flawless mask off their faces. Let the world see exactly how rotten this family really is. Step 1. The press. But not some cheap tabloid scandal. We were going straight to the big leagues. investigative journalists, the kind who'd taken down corrupt politicians and billionaire frauds. I arranged a meeting with Anna Clark, senior reporter for the Boston Globe, famous for exposing a senator's downfall in under 3 weeks. We met at a quiet little cafe downtown. I slid the thick folder across the table. This contains everything: fake financial statements, shady real estate deals, illegal takeovers orchestrated by Richard Matthews and his cronies over the past 20 years. Anna flipped through the documents, her expression darkening. You know, once this goes public, you'll have a target on your back, right? I didn't hesitate. I've already got one. This time, I'm choosing where it points. It didn't take Anna long to decide. This was the kind of story that built careers and tore down empires. That night, I returned to my apartment, feeling a fraction lighter. But I knew the real storm was still brewing. And I didn't have to wait long. Just before midnight, an anonymous email landed in my work inbox. Attached were invasive, edited photos of me, taken from hidden angles, my private life exploited, alongside one chilling message. Want to keep playing, Eliza? Or ready to back down before it's too late? I narrowed my eyes. I expected them to play dirty. The phone rang again. This time it was Sophia, my sister. You have to stop, her voice wavered. You don't understand how dangerous they are. I cut her off. Sophia, I know exactly who they are. That's why I'm not backing down. When I hung up, a quiet steeliness settled in my chest. I wasn't alone like they thought. The press was coming, the legal system was creeping in, and most importantly, I wasn't afraid anymore. The next morning, I woke up to my phone vibrating nonstop. Over 20 unread messages, 7 missed calls, and dozens of emails flooded in. I scrolled through them quickly, a cold smile curling on my lips. The front page of the Boston Globe blazed with bold headlines. The Matthews Empire. Glitz on the surface, rot within. Exclusive investigation. Beneath it was a familiar photo. Richard Matthews standing tall among Boston's elite, his trademark arrogant smirk framed perfectly, now trapped beneath the weight of scandal. Anna Clark hadn't let me down. The article laid everything bare: shady real estate deals, fraudulent business practices, political bribes. Every name once considered an ally, every handshake that built this empire, now exposed for the world to see. But it didn't stop there. The article mentioned me. They called me the whistleblower in the shadows, the woman brave enough to stand against one of the most powerful families in the city. The family's reaction came fast. My phone rang again. This time, James, my brother. His voice was ice. Well done, Eliza. You humiliated the whole family for your ego? I stayed calm. I told the truth. If the truth embarrasses you, maybe that's not my fault. Sophia's texts came next, her tone drastically different from the fear I'd heard in her voice just the day before. You just opened the gates of hell, Eliza. They won't let this go. I already knew, but there was no turning back now. By the afternoon, social media exploded. Hashtags like #MatthewsGate, #Empire of Lie, #Eliza. Speaks Out trended across Twitter, Facebook, and Reddit. The comments split into 2 camps, those praising me as brave, someone finally exposing the dictatorship hidden behind the Matthews family's glossy image. The loyalists, desperate defenders, internet trolls spinning false rumors, calling me bitter, ungrateful, delusional. I skimmed through them, unfazed. That evening, I received a message from one of the city's biggest news channels. The anchor wanted a live interview. You're at the center of this storm. The public deserves to hear your side. From you. I knew this was an opportunity, but also a double-edged sword. It could elevate me, or destroy me. But I couldn't hide forever. I agreed. On set, the bright studio lights beamed down on me. Behind the host, a massive screen displayed Richard Matthews' face, alongside harsh, attention-grabbing headlines. The anchor wasted no time. Eliza, are you bringing down your own family? Over hurt feelings and money? I stared directly into the camera, voice unwavering. I'm not bringing down my family. I'm exposing one thing, and one thing only: the lies that have protected them for 30 years. The studio fell silent. Outside that room, I knew Richard Matthews was probably raging, the family's loyalists scrambling. But for the first time in my life, I felt free. Not even 24 hours after my live interview, the Matthews family fired back, nastier than I ever could have imagined. The morning began with an anonymous email sent to every department at my firm, complete with leaked confidential documents. What were they? Photos, doctored beyond recognition, fake bank statements suggesting I'd embezzled funds from Goldman Sachs, my former employer. Within minutes, my boss, Jonathan, called me into his office, his face grave. "This is serious, Eliza. We have no choice but to suspend you during the investigation." I knew Richard Matthews' playbook like the back of my hand. He never attacked directly. It was always through others. Money, influence, carefully planted rumors, designed to break his enemies without ever leaving fingerprints. But they weren't done yet. By noon, a notorious tabloid plastered me on their front page. Whistleblower or opportunist? Inside Eliza Matthews' dark past. Below the headline were distorted details from my life. Old student loans twisted into shady debt. Moments of justified anger in tense boardrooms repackaged as signs of mental instability. I called my lawyer immediately. She didn't mince words. "Classic smear campaign. They're trying to assassinate your character so no one takes you seriously. But if we stay sharp and prove the lies, we can sue for defamation." The phone rang again. This time, my mother. Her voice cracked, shaking with fear. "Eliza, your father, he's losing control. They're preparing legal action against you, trying to strip your inheritance, your apartment, everything." I closed my eyes. Of course they were. They'd tried to crush my reputation. Now they'd go for my finances, my home, the last remnants of independence they couldn't stand me having. But I wasn't that naive teenage girl shaking under my father's lectures anymore. I was Eliza Matthews, and I'd prepared for this long ago. I immediately forwarded backup evidence of Richard Matthews' financial crimes to my lawyer. I also called Anna Clark, the reporter who'd sparked the first wave of scandal. "You ready to keep going?" I asked. Her voice on the other end was cool, darkly amused. "You don't even know the half of it yet, Eliza. I just received a new source from inside the Matthews circle." My stomach tightened. "Who?" "Your dear brother, James Matthews," Anna replied, her voice dripping with irony. "Seems he finally realized Richard Matthews can destroy anyone, even his favorite son." Another twist: the Matthews empire was crumbling from the inside. I straightened my shoulders, fingers curling into fists. Their counterattack was brutal. But I wasn't alone in this fight anymore. The real war had only just begun. I couldn't believe my ears. James, my brother, the golden boy, the perfect son my father had paraded around for decades, was now feeding information to the press, turning against the family, but deep down, I understood exactly why. James Matthews, the so-called privileged heir, was just another pawn in Richard Matthews' game. And now, with the throne wobbling beneath him, James had finally realized his father could discard him just as easily as he tried to discard me. The meeting was arranged at a discreet bar in downtown Boston. I arrived, every muscle tense, my instincts on high alert. James was already there, dressed in his usual designer suit. But his face was different, pale, haggard, eyes bloodshot, like a man who hadn't slept in days. "No need to be so defensive, Eliza," he muttered, his voice brittle. "This time, we're on the same side." I crossed my arms, my gaze cold and steady. "What do you want?" James took a long sip of whiskey before sliding a thick envelope across the table. Inside were bank statements exposing Richard Matthews laundering money through shell corporations, real estate documents revealing fake developments designed to scam investors, and most shocking of all, medical records showing that my father had once forced my mother to terminate a pregnancy simply because the child was a girl. I sat frozen. James' voice darkened. You thought you were the only one he controlled? The only one he considered disposable? That baby would have been our little sister. The air thickened with tension. For a long moment, neither of us spoke. But for the first time, I saw James clearly, not as the golden boy I resented, but as a fellow victim. Another pawn played by Richard Matthews. Why help me? I finally asked. James's bitter smile returned. Because you're the only one with the guts to openly fight him. And me? I've been silent for far too long. I took a deep breath as the pieces clicked together in my mind. With this evidence, I could do more than just defend myself against their smear campaign. I could dismantle Richard Matthews' empire for good. My phone buzzed. It was my lawyer. Eliza, I wanted to let you know. Richard Matthews has been officially indicted. Police are preparing to move in. I looked at James. For the first time, we shared the same understanding. The end was near. But this wasn't just the end of my personal battle. It was the beginning of the Matthews family's total reckoning, a reckoning 30 years overdue. That day, the Matthews estate, once a symbol of power, wealth, and carefully curated prestige, officially became a crime scene. Police cars lined the street. Reporters swarmed the gates. Curious neighbors whispered and pointed, barely hiding their satisfaction, as the so-called model family finally showed its true rotting core. I stood at a distance, quietly observing it all unfold. In my hand was the envelope James had given me, every last damning piece of evidence now handed over to the authorities. Richard Matthews, the man who had sat at the top for so long, untouchable, now stood in handcuffs. His face was ashen, jaw clenched, his predator's eyes dulled with cornered panic. Beside him, my mother, stunned, hollow, as the decades of secrets crashed down around her. The forced abortion, the DNA lies, the facade, all gone. The Matthews empire began to crumble in real time. Bank accounts frozen, company assets seized, stock prices in freefall. The same people who used to flatter and bow? Gone. They abandoned the sinking ship faster than rats from a burning building. But I didn't feel triumphant. I felt empty. After all this time, I realized I wasn't chasing their downfall for revenge. I was chasing my own freedom. A few weeks later, I signed a net contract for a new job, a position at an investment firm in London. A fresh start, far away from Boston and from the ruins of the Matthews legacy. I sold my New York apartment, packed my bags, and finally left the past behind. On my last night in the States, James met me at the airport. You sure about this? He asked, his expression surprisingly sincere. I smiled faintly. The family doesn't need me, and I sure as hell don't need that family. James nodded, handing me a small key. It's for Sophia's place, Paris. If you ever want a real home, it's there. I gripped the key tightly, understanding its quiet message. I wasn't as alone as I used to be. James, Sophia, even those like me, scarred by the same family, we were all searching for the same thing: truth, healing, and a new beginning. As the plane lifted off, I watched the city shrink below me, lighter than I'd ever felt in my life. For the first time in 32 years, I was free. No longer the disappointment of Richard Matthews, no longer the outsider in my own family. I was Eliza Matthews, or simply Eliza. And this was my next chapter. To anyone who's ever been hurt by the people meant to love you, to anyone who's ever wondered, do I deserve to be seen? Remember this: family isn't just blood. Family is the people who respect you, accept you, and give you the space to finally be yourself. Thank you for walking this journey with me. And never forget, sometimes to save yourself, you have to burn the bridge behind you and never look back.